Hello, family. This is Charles Thompson again coming at you for another 30 minutes or so of lecture and conversation. Assalamu alaikum, shalom, and peace. Um, we're going to get started again. We're going to open up with the Fatiha the way that it should be spoken, coming from slavery, and to get back to the spiritual connection of the vibration of nature and creation. In the name of righteousness, the cherisher and sustainer of the worlds, most gracious, most merciful, master of the day of judgment, thee do we worship, and thine aid do we seek. Show us the straight way, the way of those of whom thou hast bestowed thy grace, those whose portion is not wrath, and who go not astray. Assalamu alaikum. I've been doing a lot of studying, and we have come a long way, and we have been through so much as a people that we don't really comprehend what we've been through, because God and righteousness was with us. And it reminds me of the story in the Quran. It talks about the people of the cave. They thought they were in there for a short period of time, but they were in there for a couple of lifetimes. And it's an interesting story, and it pertains to what we've been through as a people. You know, we have to be proud as a people to know that what we've been through, and that God and righteousness was with us on that journey under religion, and how he dealt with us and how we survived to make it through. And it was a biblical proportion, because we as a people can actually look back at our history in the rearview mirror and see what we have been through and survived. And we could write and add a third testament to scriptures that would validate the brutality and the hatred that comes from religion. And religion happens to be another scheme that Satan created to derail the original people from the path of righteousness. And all we have to do is ask God, our inner person, to forgive us for neglecting our righteousness and worshiping something other than righteousness. We were conditioned to worship the image of a man, not even of ourselves or of our own kind. And we should let the people that look like that image worship that image, and you get yourself away from that image. If someone tried to convince you to worship that image, you tell them where to go. And you shouldn't want anything to do with that image based on what your mothers, what your ancestors went through under that image. You have to understand that your spirit is the most important thing that you are carrying around. And get in a relationship with your spiritual person, the righteousness that's within you. Nothing on the outside is going to help you. Everything that you need to go to heaven and get to paradise is within you. You just got to learn how to nurture it and get away from the influence of religion or worshiping anything other than what's inside of you. So that's what the Fatiha is all about. It's about righteousness. That's what the Torah is all about. It's about righteousness. Most so-called Christians have not read the Torah or the Talmud. This is the first 5 books of Moses. And your average Christian never seen one of these books. Not even have breaking the seal. This is a Hebrew, but it's also in English. And you can read it, and it'll tell you about the covenant of righteousness. This information is accessible. And the reason that our community is in such a disarray and the Black family is in such a disarray is because we've been under the influence of a man-made religion, and it's a one-side religion where it tells you that a white image is your God. That's not true. You are a spiritual person, so you have to reconnect to spirituality. And you have to understand as a spiritual person that the meaning of the holy truth, even the Arabs don't want you to know the truth. Under Islam, they still want you, religious consciousness, to transition over to Islam, thinking in the same concept that you were when you was a Christian. But you got to come out of religion. This is about righteousness. This is about truth. This is about revelations. It's a clarity that you get when you read this, when you understand the key words. Allah means righteousness. So stop saying Allah and say righteousness. And when it says Muslim, you got to think about a righteous person. And when you see Lord, when you're reading the Torah, you got to know that the Lord is righteousness that's within you. We have to stop being a sucker for everybody else. When everybody else wants to keep you a slave, they don't want you to feel free. And even when I read in the Quran the truth, it says if you were to turn the water into ink, and if you were to write about all the righteousness that has happened to humanity, you would exacerbate the water, because there's that much righteousness to be written about that you would exhaust all the water. And that's the truth. The story of Joseph, it's about righteousness. It's about how a little boy had a vision when he was a child. Him and his brother Benjamin, and his other 9 brothers, they had a different mother. And it shows how righteousness, how he evolved. And righteousness stayed on, and he stayed on course with righteousness. And righteousness delivered him and elevated him where he was running the country. The same thing with Moses, how righteousness. And Moses stayed on the path of righteousness. And Moses got delivered because of righteousness. Abraham, the same thing. He left his people because they were worshiping idols. And righteousness took him out of that scenario of paganism and developed him under Abraham. And none of the prophets were religious people. They were all righteous men who served diligently righteousness. And they convinced righteousness to be their guide and their savior. And Noah, he did the same thing. It's about righteousness. Religion can't help you. Religion is not a righteous. Religion takes you into darkness. Righteousness brings you out of darkness. Look at the sun as being righteousness. There isn't nothing on this planet that is not affected by righteousness if you see righteousness as being the truth. and nurturing everything on this earth. When you eat a grape, it's full of sunshine. It's busting with sunshine. Animals, the food that they eat and digest was raised and affected by the sun. And the melanin that you have, it's not a color, this is a chemical. Because your ancestors was here when the earth and the universe was being created. Your melanin is has more value than gold. In your melanin, there's material from Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto. You can't duplicate your melanin. And that's why non-melanin people hate melanin people, because they don't have the power and the spirituality that comes along with your melanin. And you have to understand it, because they ain't going to tell you. And I'm still upset with these preachers that if they would understand the truth that was in the book, we would come out of the condition that these people put us in. Like I said in the previous video, we created the wealth that America is enjoying, that France is enjoying, that Dutch and the Portuguese are enjoying. All that comes from what we did, what we gave them as far as capitalism. And they're still living off of that wealth of free labor. You're not a lazy person. You are misled people intentionally. Satan's scheme was to create something that would take the original man away from righteousness and put him under the influence of hatred, racism, bigotry, and all of these negative attributes of Satan, and keep you in that, under religion. So when God comes back to redeem his man, his created man Adam, that Adam wouldn't recognize who he was. Because we've been conditioned by the black church to put your heart and soul and faith into religion. But religion is the deceiver. God judges you by your righteousness, not by your denomination. And I know you're feeling me, because you, as a melanin person, can look back at what you've been going through and what you're still going through. And they trying to resurrect it through Donald Trump. They want to overthrow their own government just to maintain the control of you staying in your position and making America great again. But America's done. You have to wake up. I remember that Motown version of Somewhere Over the Rainbow. What was that? The Eyes, The Wiz, yeah. It was Evelyn. She couldn't stand water. She was allergic to water. She was a mean thing too, you know? And she got flushed down the toilet. And the people took them ugly suits off. It was ugly too, big lips and all kinds of stuff. But that spirit, that new spirit, and the sun came out, and everything was heaven again. And they were free. They was dancing all over the place. This is what you have to go through once you reconnect to who you are spiritually. Another thing the preachers don't talk about is, you know, they always talk about the Last Supper, right? Well, the Last Supper, it deals with, can you see this? It deals with the 12 disciples, the zodiac sign, the spirituality. And here is Allah, the head, 2 arms, and 2 L's. And it's related to what's in your melanin. And it connects to your soul. And you can't get away from it. The universe, you are in conjunction with the universe because of your melanin. As it is in heaven, so shall it be on earth. And these are the suns that rotate, evolve. This is the diagram, the best diagram that I can come up with, and it's called Kabbalah. And it talks about the different orbs that rotate in your body, your soul. This is good stuff. And here it is again. The head, this is the name of God. It's Yah-He-Vahi. And it's got the head and 2 arms and the 2 legs. This is Adam. And this is Adam. And this is the top. This is the crown. And when you connect with your spirit from your creation, everything flows down and comes out on the plane, on this dimension. But it all has to do with these different planets that's circulating within your inner person. And going back to this book, Abba. And Allah. This is it. Allah. This is the diagram. I'm not misleading you. I'm trying to get you to understand Scripture and how important the covenant was to Adam, because he broke the covenant. Because God said, this is the most important thing to you, and don't eat from that tree. As long as you don't eat from that tree, you can live in this environment that I've created for you. But if you break that covenant, you got to get out. You got to get out of paradise. So what I'm trying to tell you is you got to get back to paradise. We got to get back to righteousness. We got to get away from religion and back on the path, the straight way. And that's what a Fatiha is all about. And that's what you ask in every morning when you get up, and when you in the middle of the day and at night, you say the Fatiha. You ask for forgiveness for going astray. It's a beautiful thing once you understand it. And most of these Muslims, when they come from religion, when they come from Christianity, and they transition to Islam, they still got the mentality of Christianity that they haven't shed it. Because, and the Arabs want you under religion too, because most Arabs, most people in Islam, they are practicing religion and they stuck on tradition. But they don't know that Allah is righteousness. And they don't know that Quran is truth. And they don't know that Muslim is a righteous person. Because they still think in religion and tradition is what's going to get them there. But it's not. It's your righteousness. You can be in Islam, but you can still be a crook because of the influence of religion. That's why you have to pray so many times a day, because you're trying to alleviate, you're trying to shed from your soul and from your behavior or what you went through under Christianity. Post-traumatic slave syndrome. That's what the average black man is suffering from. Post-traumatic slave syndrome. So when you transition to Islam, you have to depend on righteousness. And Allah. You got to be responsible for your actions. This is what the prophets, all the prophets, became responsible. and they stood strong against their enemies because they knew that righteousness was the solution for mankind. Unity and love, working together, building the family, building the community, building economics. This is what righteousness does. If you study nature and travel, don't be afraid to travel. Get rid of that fear. Get out there and see creation, and you will appreciate creation and what creation has done for you. And you will get the desire to explore mathematics and the sciences and understand them. Righteousness is the pheromone that your Creator adheres to. And you got to create that pheromone so that God can bless you through righteousness and trade righteousness like it's a currency. And then you can deal and use the dividend to spend in favor of righteousness. Because you'll get benefits from being a righteous person. And you will get to paradise for being a righteous person. Christianity, you're going to have to come back again. And you have to understand also what the crucifixion has done to us as a people. The crucifixion has killed us spiritually of righteousness. Because when you nailed to something and you forced on something, and then they stick thorns in your head and drain you of your senses, and then they stick you in the side and let you bleed out. And you can't move when you're crucified on religion. Because that's how they're keeping you on the bottom of the food chain. Because you can't move. You can't be responsible for yourself and for righteousness. You can't help yourself when you're trapped under another man's influence. And let me remind you to like and share this conversation because it's important. And I'm really putting emphasis on these so-called Muslims, American Muslims that don't understand that Allah is righteousness. You got the head, you got the two arms, and you got the two legs for L's. And you have to be able to come off of that cross of religion and be able to function collectively to become a people that's more powerful than an ant or more stronger than a bee. Look at nature around you and creation that God created for you. And for you to not become a part of that, then you are crucified. And righteousness is the vehicle that will get you to where you should be. And you want to go to paradise. So you have to understand that when you're reading these books that God left through the messengers and prophets, you have to understand what they represent and the symbolism that is in the book. Joseph is a beautiful story if you understand Joseph and how righteousness delivered him to become a prominent person in that culture of Egypt. You know, all the prophets, they were righteous men. They weren't religious men. Joseph was so beautiful because of his righteousness. That's why the queen tried to seduce him, because of his discipline to his inner person. That was his beauty. He would rather be locked up than be among people that didn't have that same beauty that his father gave him. Because Jacob, his name was changed to Israel, was the son of Abraham. You know the lineage. The book tells you the lineage. Noah, what he built is what you got to build. You got to get in harmony with the animals, because the animals, they do their righteousness, what they were created to do. You know, I remember an African said that about righteousness. He said that I'm glad that righteousness didn't put wings on a lion. And I would be too if I was in Africa, a place where lions are roaming around and they were able to fly. You know, we have to understand and accept righteousness for what it is and give up religion. Look in your rearview mirror and see what religion has done to you. This country was built on trafficking, human trafficking. And they're not going to let you forget it. All the money that you see on the currency, all those pictures, they were former slave masters. And they constantly remind you that they're not going to let you go. They're not going to tell you the truth. They don't want you to prosper. These were Christians that financed slavery. These were Christians that was hanging us. These were Christians that were taking your babies from you, that was raping your wives and your daughters. Those were Christians. They'd get out of church and go watch you hanging. Did you hear what I said? They would get out of church with their Sunday best on to go watch hanging a Negro. They treated us like cattle. And they burned that cross to purify it, because nobody else other than white folks can do that. It was a secret organization, the Knights of Columbus. There's another organization, the John Birch Society. The Klan is still alive. You know, they might get along with you, but, you know, their history, because of their history, they can't step outside of that box and really feel the pain that they put you through. And this governor in Florida, he's trying to get it out of the history book. Ron Santos. And he's an immigrant. But they don't want their kids to know that they treated you so cruelly. That's the only reason that they're taking it out of the history books. And you stupid if you let them remove that, and if you don't promote it. You got to stand up for righteousness and leave that religion scheme to the devil. Give it back to him. You need to die and stand up for righteousness. And maybe righteousness will bless you, because righteousness put you in this condition because you were hard-headed against the covenant of righteousness. So righteousness said, okay, I'll show you. I can show you better than I can tell you. And that's what he did. So I'm gonna end this. My 30 minutes is almost up. But it's important for you to understand that Allah is righteousness. Right?